Anyway, we're holding. We just started Shammai. Perek Aleph, Pirkei Avos, Mishneh Tes Vav. I'll just repeat that Mishneh because I just started it and I really didn't get into the Mishneh, and I'll try to complete it, plus maybe the next one. Shammai Omer. Shammai, we said, was the machmer of the Zugas of Hillel and Shammai, and he was the one that always was the one that was. If there was a shiloh, usually they pass him like Beis Hillel because they want to make a little more to the more lenient side. But in order to be lenient, they had to study much more in a way and give more reasons why things were allowed to be mutter, so to speak, allowed. While Shammai, on the other hand, or in the Beis Shammai, which was the school of Shammai, which was the yeshiva of Shammai, they were much more stringent. And but they held that that's what the halacha was, and that's the way we should hold. And now, as I said, when Mashiach is going to come, right now the halacha is according to Beis Hillel, but then the halacha will go according to Beis Shammai. And of course, this is the week of Shavuos, which is Kinyan Torah. We said the Pirkei Avos, so the sixth Perek of Pirkei Avos is actually not part of Pirkei Avos, and they picked some from another place. Sechta Kala, they call it, that it's Kinyan Torah. It's the week that after we reach the stage of hopefully learning 5 weeks of Musar, so to speak. So this is the week that we should get closer to the Torah. So it's appropriate that Shammai says, I say Torascha Keva, we should make our Torah Keva. Now, first of all, it should be, Keva means it should become a staple in your life. It should become a fixed practice. It should become a way of life. The word Keva really means that every single day you should have a set time to learn Torah. You should learn actually at the same time, and you should have a makom kavua. The place that you learn is the place that you should daven, because the Rebbeinu Hashem lists that place becomes a certain kedusha, so you should stay in that place. First question is when you go up to Shemayim is, first of all, is honesty. Did you do business with Amunah? Were you honest in business? Were you honest with other people? That's the first question after 120 they ask you. And the second question is, Asay Terascha, did you make Kavata Itim B'Torah? Did you make a time, a specific time to learn Torah? Now, Torah has to technically, the halacha of Torah is that you have to be thinking about Torah a whole day. You know, in the morning we say Birchas HaTorah, we say brachas before we daven, because there's certain psukim of Torah in davening. We call it Birchas HaTorah, Asher Baruch Banu Mikol Amin, and La'asok B'divrei Torah. And the reason we don't do it every time we sit and learn, why, like any other mitzvah, we make a bracha when we eat something, we make a bracha when we go into the sukkah. Every time the sukkah, we have, not in the same meal, obviously. If you went out and you did something, then you come back, you have to make another bracha, because your mind wasn't in the. But the halacha is because we have to learn the whole day, technically. Therefore, if the mitzvah is incumbent upon us the whole day, and therefore we don't have to make a bracha every time we sit down and learn Torah. So, say Torascha Keva could also mean, it should be, like I said, the Torah should be in your life should be Torah. Now, how do you make your Torah be your whole life? It can't physically possibly be that the average person can make Torah his whole life. You're doing a business transaction with somebody, and something comes up, and you say the halacha is like this. I want to go according to Shittas HaTorah. Then the business that you did has the schar of learning Torah as well, because your whole mindset in life, your derech of living, is Torah, the way the Torah wants us to live. So Torah doesn't expect everybody, like I said once before, to be a Rosh Yeshiva or to sit in kollel, because physically it's not possible for everybody. But on the other hand, when you're out in the job and you have in mind that when I'm going to at 2 o'clock, I'm going to stop and I'm going to daven mincha because in this winter it gets dark a little early. I don't want to finish it. In your mind, you're thinking about kedusha. In your mind, when somebody asks you a question, somebody comes into your place of business and does something that's possibly not like the halacha, and you say, no, this is the way it should be done. So that is learning Torah. That's part of the Torah. So when you say asay Torah keva, you can be learning Torah almost the whole day without physically learning Torah. Therefore, it's appropriate not to make a bracha every single time you sit down and learn Torah, because technically your mind should have a certain mode of learning Torah. And he continues Shammai. Now, as I said before, Hillel started with the first Derech Eretz. He starts first with Torah Shammai, and therefore, when Hillel when Hillel is speaking, he says that if you're going to have Derech Eretz, then you're going to eventually, such people like that, when they approach Torah, they're going to learn Torah a lot better. Shammai's philosophy was that when we learn Torah first, if we should learn Torah first, and if we're going to learn Torah first, then the learning of Torah is going to bring us to behavior, a better behavior. And that was Shammai's philosophy. So he says, Asay Torah Sakela. First, make it Torah a fixed practice, something that you should be doing all the time. And then he says, Emor Ma'at Vasei Harbe. Just, there are some people that promise, and then they don't deliver. Or in their mind, they say they're going to do something and it doesn't happen. Rather, the Gemara says, Toiva sheloi tido mititido v'tishalom. What does that mean? A lot of times you're in shul, they make an appeal for a maisid or for a tzedakah, and everybody's saying $50, $60, $100, $200. If you're not sure you're going to pay, don't promise. It's better not to promise than to promise and pay. In other words, of course, it's the best thing is to promise and pay. But if you're not sure if you're going to end up paying or not paying, don't promise. Say less. Don't do like the Joneses. They just because he gave $50, you have to promise $50. If you don't think you can, or if you don't think you want, maybe it's not you. You have other places that give you money. But rather, don't promise. And say little, do much. Without little saying. Now, where do we see this? With this philosophy come up the most? We look in the Torah. Avraham Avinu, he was sitting with the Rabbi Shalom, and he saw these 3 Arabs outside, and he runs outside and he invites them in. And all he said to them is, I'm going to give you, look, come in and have some bread. That's all he said. Meanwhile, what does the Medrash say he gave them? He made sure that they slaughtered 3 sheep. Why 3 sheep? You could have had 1 sheep, because the tongue of a sheep is very, very small, not so big. And he felt that the best part of meat in the sheep is going to be the tongue, and he wanted each one to have as his own tongue to be able to enjoy his meal. So he went out of his way. He just said, "Pas lechem, I'll give you bread. Come in, I'll give you some bread. I'll give you a piece of cake." And he went and he shechted, and he gave them the best matzahs, the purest form of it was actually Pesach, the purest form of soiles, the cleanest one, and he delivered. Like, he didn't even promise it, and he gave much more. So his philosophy was emor ma'at kasei harvei. On the other hand, what do we see reverse? Same thing by Avram as well. We see it by Ephraim. Ephraim, unfortunately, when Sarah and Menu passed away, he went to look for the Mor. Basically, he found the Moras HaMachpelah, and he wanted to bury Sarah in the Moras HaMachpelah. See, now, Avraham Avinu, in his generation and in the places that he went, he was known as the king, so to speak. Even though he may not have been the king of that particular place that he went, but everybody revered him, and everybody respected him, and everybody looked up to him. So if somebody did business with Avram, his status went up. So if he went and ordered something by a certain company, all of a sudden that company became business. Because, if it's good for him, it's good enough for me. And everybody did business with that company. Ephraim was a normal guy, but he owned a piece of real estate that happened to have them Moras HaMachpelah on it. When Avram Avinu went and approached him and said, I want to buy that piece of property from you, He was so excited that Avram Avinu came to him that he went and said, you know what? Are you kidding me? You don't have to pay me one penny. L'chonit sapiha. I'll give it to you straight up. I'll give you a gift. Because he knew, all of a sudden, first of all, the Medrash says the day that Ephraim was dealing with Avram Avinu, there was no king in that area, in Chiti. And they went, the people, and they voted in Ephraim because they said, if he's good enough from Avram Avinu, then he must be good enough to be our king. So imagine the status he's dealing with Avram Avinu. I'll give it to you because the byproduct of giving it to him, the benefits, are going to be so great that he's going to become king. He became king. But what happened? What happened was that Avram Avinu said, no, I want to pay for it. He knew that in later generations, in fact, now, this actually was last week, by the Israelis are one of a elevator, because very lot of steps there. No, it's very difficult to get up there. And wheelchair-bound people, unfortunately, cannot get up those steps. They want to build an elevator from the outside. It's going to be independent of the building, and they're going to attach it to a walkway. And the Arabs say, no, it's ours, because the Yishmael, they say, is the main focus of their religion, and they're descendants of Yishmael, so they feel he's buried over there, and they're the owners of it. But the Torah says that Avram Avinu went and paid for it top dollar, 400 shekel oivel asaycha. What does oivel asaycha mean? A lot of times you have a shekel. In those days, they used to weigh it. A shekel that didn't have for example, a picture on it, like a coin has the picture of the president. In those days, the most valuable shekel was the one that had a coin with a picture on it that was untouched, it was clear, because the more you handle it, it would get rubbed off, and the value of the gold actually would become less. So if the value of the gold became less, the shekel was actually worth less. In fact, years back, they used to have a coin in Israel that they used to put into the phone, and they used to call it asimonin. Nobody had private phones. There was phones outside. Very rare to get a private phone, and everybody would put in. You have to put in coins, and every 20 seconds you'd have to put in another coin. These coins had little holes in them. It was interesting, and they called them asimon. And in the Gemara, what does asimon mean? It's a coin with no picture. It has very, very little value. These Ephraim became greedy. He said, I'm going to give it to you. And not only at the end that he asked for money, he asked for the best money. And what happened? The Rambam, I mean, consider, he had a vekuach, a discussion, a debate with people of his time. And the Rambam said that everybody's nature is inbred, and every animal has its innate nature, and you can't change it. And they said it is that you're wrong. They claimed that a person who trains an animal could become almost like a human being. That's the way they felt. So they said, he said, prove it. So they took a cat and they trained it to be a waiter. And sure enough, 8, 9 months, a year later, they worked very hard to train this cat. And they said, okay, now we're ready. And they made this big, lavish feast. And this feast, the cat walked out wearing a uniform of a waiter with a little hat. And on it, it had the written on it, waiter. And he's carrying a tray, a cat. And there, these people are feeling so good about themselves. Look at that. We proved the Rambam, who was the king's doctor, and he was like the hush of a Jew, and he was supposed to be the smart one. We proved him wrong. So he didn't say a word. And as the meal is progressing, the cat comes closer to him to bring whatever he's bringing him, and he takes out a little box from his jacket and opens the box, and a little mouse jumps out. The mouse jumps out of the box, and before you knew it, the tray was on the floor. He ripped off his uniform because he couldn't run quick enough, and he started chasing the cat and the mouse. And the mouse, of course, ran away, and there was the cat. The cat was gone. And then they realized that the Rambam was right. You can train him up to a certain point, but once the nature of a cat is to chase a mouse, there's no physical way you can change that nature. When our Ephraim heard that Avraham Avinu wants to pay for this Ma'alim Samach, so he said, okay, so give me a little bit. And all of a sudden he heard the jingling of the coins, of the shekel, and he saw the beautiful shkolim that Avraham Avinu was going to pay him. So he already said, oh, no. Now you got to pay me. You want to pay me? Then pay me the price. Don't give me a little. No. 400 shekel, for the best shkolim of the time is the way you're going to pay me. And that's somebody who was emor ma'at aseh harbe, and he was reversed. He said a lot, but he did nothing. And that's this Mishneh of Shammai. And the last thing he says is, you should be makabel as kol adam b'seiv upon the. What does that mean? It's exactly as it says. When you greet somebody, your demeanor is the way this person is gonna really almost behave towards you. If you greet somebody with a smile, businesses that have these greeters in the front. Sometimes it's not even sincere, but that's his job. But it makes some sort of impact. But if somebody is sincere, and when he says hello and he smiles, and you see in his eyes, they're sparkling, he's happy to see you, there's no question that you're going to react to that person much more different than another person. Now, this Shammai is saying, after he said, Asay teras keva. Now, there was this incident that happened during the Bolshevik Revolution in the early 1900s in Russia. They started started with a bunch of thugs, like you have even now. They say, what stops these revolutions? They're a bunch of thugs. And then people started convincing people that their thing is the right way to do it. And of course, the first people they start up with are the Jews. So these thugs went around looking for Jews, and they said you can't learn Torah. That's the beginning of the communist the ideology, where there is no God. The government is the God. If you need something, you got to ask the president. If you need something, you got to ask the government. And that's their philosophy and ideology. So what they did was these are the forerunners of the communists of the Russian Federation, and they went and they were running around to different yeshivas and basically closing them down. And they would kill you willy-nilly. There were people who were getting killed left and right, and there was nobody could do anything about it. Well, but the yeshiva bachum were very innocent, and they stayed in yeshiva and they ignored the outside world as if it never happened. They tried to live in this little bubble, so to speak. And it worked for a little while. And one day, all of a sudden, the door bursts open, and a contingent of these Bolshevik soldiers come running in, and they line up everybody against the wall, and they stop threatening them, but they're going to kill them because we told you to not learn. And the Mishneh this is the tells the yeshiva. The Mishneh was the Rosh Yeshiva, and he wasn't a tall man, and he walks up to the leader of this Bolshevik group of soldiers, and he says, "Listen to me." And the soldier looks at him like this shortish rabbi, and he's talking to him in such a tough way, but he's trying to basically make him listen. And as this soldier's looking at him, he stops short, and you could see something in his face. And then he takes off his hat, and he looks like typically most of these isms, they all start with Jews. And he looks at Reb Shimshkov, and he says, "Rebbe, is that you?" Now everybody's like, "What's going on here?" And Reb Shimshkov looks at him and he says, "I don't know who you are. If you tell me who you are, maybe I will recognize you." He said, "You really don't recognize me?" So he says, "I'm sorry, I must have seen you years ago." He says, "Yeah, it was true, it was years ago, but let me remind you of a story. Because I was a yeshiva bach, and I wanted to come into these hotels. And I went, but I really wasn't such a great bachman. I was a little bit young. But I went for a hair because I really wanted to get into the yeshiva hotels. And I went to, at that point, people the Mishneh wasn't the one that behaved. It was, not everybody could, because he doesn't have that time to test everybody that comes in. So he had these people that tested the people, the bachman that wanted to come to the yeshiva. So I finished my test and I saw that it wasn't going well, and I realized I'm not coming into the yeshiva, and I started rushing out. And all of a sudden, you saw me by the door, and you stopped me, and you said, come here, come into my office. And I didn't know what you wanted, but you asked me to come in. So I thought maybe there's some hope I'll come into the yeshiva. I come into the office and said, please take off your coat. He says, what? He said, please take off your coat. So he takes off his coat. He says, make yourself comfortable for a few minutes. And he does. And he says, you went over to a little drawer, you pulled out a needle and thread, and you said, I'm sorry, it is freezing outside. And I saw that your button was going to come off any second, and it's too cold to walk out without a button holding your coat together. This coat only has one button. He said, and he himself started to sew on this button, the Rosh Hashiva, the great Rav Shimon Shikab. And he said, I kept watching you, and I saw that you were so real. You were so, your face had a demeanor like besides Kedusha, that you were an honest person, that you really felt for me. I felt your heart was such a giving heart that I was he says, I still feel it right now. He says, I still feel it. So he says to the guys around him, you guys get out, please. And they blow with their guns. They went out. And he says, Rebbe, I'm sorry how I turned out, but this is my life right now. But I'll never, ever forget your face. That at that moment when you were busy sewing on a button, and you felt for me the fact that you knew that I wasn't accepted probably, and you knew that I was going out into the cold to take care of me. That is the epitome was having the Kabbalah's Kala Adam to say the coming up. And that's the way we have to remember that every time somebody comes to your house, every time you meet somebody in the street, if that hello, if it's real for sure, but even for sure to say hello, the Gemara says, one of the Tanoim, when he passed away, they said that he never did not say hello. I think it was Yochanan and Zakkai. Did not say hello. There was no one person that he ever met in the morning that said hello to him before he said it to him, even a guy. He always greeted everybody in the morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. And I'm going to finish with one more similar story, which is an amazing story. There was a person in Europe that I mentioned him once. He had a shul. He came on 58th Street and in Barakov. He made it through the war. I'll come to me and he made his name. Not the Kapishnik was the. Okay, I'll come in a second. In any case, he was the Rebbe of the city. He was about 50 years old at that time. And there was a farmer that he used to take walks out of the city. And there was a farmer that was farming his land. Now, this farmer was not Polish, and this was in Poland. This farmer was a German that moved to Poland because he wanted to buy a farm, and in Poland the farm was cheaper. He went and he bought a farm in Poland, and he spoke Polish with a German accent, but this Rav spoke German as well. Every morning, as he would walk out of the city to these areas where it was more quiet, that he can concentrate, a little exercise, also be able to prepare a shear, maybe he would pass the farm, and farmer would always be outside in the morning. It was early morning, and the Rav would say to him, "Guten Morgen, Herr Müller." Good morning, Mr. Muller. That was his name. And every single morning, Mr. Muller would say, "Guten Morgen, Herr Rabbiner." Now, he was just a farmer. He was like an Amaretz, a person that from the lower class citizens. And he was the Rav of the city, and he knew he was the Rav, except told him good morning. It was such an uplifting thing for him, it made his day. So every morning, for years, it was Good Morgen, Herr Muller, and he would say, Guten Morgen, Herr Rabbiner. Good morning, Rabbi. Sure enough, unfortunately, the war came out, and Nazis were looking for people who lived in Poland who were German to join their ranks. And this Muller joined the ranks. They thought he was a typical person to join the ranks because he was an uneducated boor. He was a Nazi. He was a farmer. And finally, he's going to be a somebody. And he worked his way up very quickly to become an officer in the Nazi army. But he was vicious, very, very vicious. And he would gun down people left and right. And he had an office in Poland. And Polish citizens would come to him and beg him for certain things. And if he didn't like the way you asked, he shot you. Right there in his office, he had a gun there. The people really stayed away from him. In any case, there was something that had to happen that this Rav needed. And then he said, I'm going to go to this officer. And he says, he didn't at that time know that this officer happened to be Mullah. He goes into the room, and as he walks into the room, now at that point already, the rabbi did not have a beard anymore, and he was all emaciated, and he looked nothing like he used to look. And he turns, as he walks into the office, he notices who the officer is, and he says, "Guten Morgen, Herr Müller." Now this Mullah used to ignore the person that came into him usually, wait and shiver. It was a tactic. But the minute he heard that voice, and with "Guten Morgen, Herr Müller," he picked up his head and automatically he said, "Guten Morgen, Herr Rabbiner." And then he looks at him and says, "Is that you, Herr Rabbiner? What happened to you?" Like he didn't even, in his mind, realize that this Jewish Rebbe, unfortunately, is going through hell, and he looks like this because of him and his people. And he was quiet. The Rebbe didn't know what to say. And then at that point, he had lost a couple of kids already. So he sat him down. He said, "Listen to me, Herr Rabbiner. I appreciate every single day when you used to come to me. And your good morning made my day," he said. He said, "As long as I'm in control of this ghetto," he says, "you're going to have a place and food every single day." And he sustained him for the time being while he was with that. And that was all because of a Rav that was Makabel Kol Adam. It says Kol Adam. I'm going to maybe just say one more thing because I'm just the word Adam. Atem Kuyim Adam, one of the things that all the years that in the Torah many times it says Adam, and the Gemara says you are called Adam and not a goy, and we suffered because of that. Because usually the people who translated were Jews who became disenchanted with religion, and they usually converted to another religion, and they would come back and be our biggest enemies. And what happened was you're telling me that in your Gemara it says that we are not even called human beings, not even called Adam. But when it says having makabel es kol ha-adam, we're not talking about a goy here. We're talking about even about goy. Any person that's human, you have to be makabel b'seiv upon him yafos. And this actually, maybe I'll say another story. What happened in the famous Dreyfus affair? This pasuk was used, and that's how we got him. So this, to finish just today, is that when we get towards Kabbalah, we have to say to us Chokeva, but we have to be makabel kol adam b'seiv upon him yafos. Greet everybody with a pleasant demeanor, because when the Kiddush Hashem, and then it shows that you belong with a people that are somebody special, are special. And this week we have to become more special, that we should show the world that we are more special than the rest of the world. And with that, I'll finish in this chus to learn to pray. We should become more special, and we should have simchas and come back like we got slowly into our what in the drashim, and we should have simchas and nachas and gesund. Have a very good day.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen.